Okay, I guess I'm going. All right, let's hope. Makes me nervous. I lost my train of thought, but I think I'm going. Okay. All right. Now I'm not sure how exactly how I'm going to do this, but the two things those of us who are getting ready for the test have to do are look at the three branches of government and then look at the essential documents. Now it's about 6:30 on Sunday night. Once 8 to 4 kicks in, these things take forever to process. So anything I'm going to get done, I've got to get done tonight. Plus, I got blah blah blah, other stuff to do, other crap I got to do. So I can't tell if I might try to do 2 videos. I might try to do the three branches of government, then try to do the essential documents too. But it seems to me always the way to go. The way I like to go when we're reviewing is you write. So over here, you're just writing down everything you remember. So like get a sheet of paper, make your own slide, however you want to do it. Write down everything you can remember about Congress, and then we'll do the president, and then we'll do the courts, and then I'll do a slide where we're interacting. So like the standard says, look at how the three branches interact. Now, even if you're not taking the test, this is awfully good. This is awfully good kind of sum things up kind of stuff. I'll probably send some optional stuff out if you want to think about politics of the coronavirus some more. You can do that. I've been thinking about political philosophy and the coronavirus, and I may send that out too. So that'll probably be some optional stuff. But my goodness, you can do a lot worse than thinking about the three branches of government, right? And there's really not. Obviously, there's politics there, but today's politics doesn't necessarily enter in. So there's no concern that we're leaning too far one way or the other. So studying for an AP test, even if you're not taking an AP test, it's awfully good activity. All right, so I'd pause it. Take 5-10 minutes, bullet point it, jot down everything you can about what you remember about Congress. And, the good thing about it is just about the first thing we did this semester. It was the major unit that we did this semester. All right, but try to think in terms of big picture. What would you say are the top 3 or 4 things? So I'm going to breathe a second, assume that you paused it, then I'm going to go over on the right side. And I'm going to give you what I would say is the top 4. Okay, let's even number them off. All right, first thing, lawmaking. It's got to be lawmaking, right? That's the first thing. Congress makes laws. So you're looking at lawmaking. All right, and that's just kind of easy at this point, right? So I think somehow or another that process is in your head. So the bill gets introduced in both houses, goes to committee. If there's too much to do, it goes to the subcommittee, hearing testimony, debate, amend, vote. Then if it gets out, which it probably won't, goes to the committee, same thing. All right, on the House side, you got the Rules Committee, where you have an open, closed, or modified rule, where they decide how many amendments there'll be, what the limit on the floor debate's going to be. And then it goes to the House floor, and there they debate and amend, vote it. Okay? On the Senate side, you've got got the eternally open rule, so you got the filibuster possibility with cloture, and you need 60 votes necessary for cloture. So, that means anything to get through the Senate's got to have 60 votes. If you end up with 2 separate bills, of course, they debate, amend, and vote on it. If you 2 separate bills, they got to be put together in the conference committee that's made up of members of both houses. Okay, then it goes to the president. He can sign it, he can veto it, he can pocket veto it. If he vetoes it, goes back to both houses, debate it, vote on it. If 2/3 vote on it, it's a law. So there's a lawmaking process. Just like with the Supreme Court, a whole lot more bills get introduced. Then I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill. All right? So boom. That's the first thing. Okay. What else will we say? Let's go with the language they like to use. Let's go representation. So the three things that Congress do is lawmaking, representation, and oversight. Oversight was the impeachment. Oversight's when they're looking into this or that scandal, so they're going to check in how things are going. So I mean, let's throw oversight in there. We want oversight to be a word we're familiar with, but representation is where all those incumbency things kick in, and it was like 8 of them. So what did we have? 2 with names, franking name recognition, and 3 with P's, PAC money, pork money, position taken, 2 C's maybe, casework and credit claiming, 2, 3, and 5, 2, 7. What am I forgetting? Then like the gerrymandering. Seems like there's one other thing I'm forgetting, because I think there was PAC money, pork money, position taken, 3 C's, casework. Oh, it's leaving me. I'm stupid. But it's all those things that they do that they're so good at it. Name recognition, position taking, credit claiming. So it's those 2 C's, 3 P's, and then I guess it's gerrymandering. I don't know. All right, but all those things, because of all those things, you got the situation where we don't like Congress, but you got these real high incumbency re-election rates. So the effectiveness of the representation, that's a good AP term, makes for these incumbent re-election rates. So lawmaking, the perception is they don't do a very good job of lawmaking, that you got like gridlock and the president doesn't like what Congress does. But, I guess once the blankety blank hits the fan, you're going to have some oversight. And the oversight, our Exhibit A with impeachment feels like it's politically motivated. But, so, I mean, it's kind of nasty. But because they're so good at the representation, you get these high re-election rates. All right. And then maybe you got the House and the Senate compared. So the comparison. So the House is the cup and the Senate is the saucer. The House, things get heated up. They're delegates. They've got to stay popular. The Senate's where it's the upper house where things get cooled down. And they're slower and deliberative. They're going to turn these things over, and the filibuster helps with that. Filibuster's not in the Constitution. Filibuster's kind of created, but it kind of adds to that notion that this is where things slow down, and they're more likely to be trustees. A politico is somebody who is he's a trustee when he can be. He's a delegate when he's got to be. And they live to kind of fight another day. The Senate see the president, the presidency in their future. They've got more prestige. They're on TV more. All right. 2-year, 6-year term, 40, 35, 100. Virginia plan, New Jersey plan. That's kind of the comparison. What about leadership? That's the other thing to say. So the leadership in the Senate side kind of symbolic, and vice president, president pro tempore, till you get down to the level of majority leader. And McConnell's leadership powers kind of the power to persuade, or maybe even the power to delay. And then Pelosi, the speaker, she's got more power because she's got more people she's got to deal with. 435 people, that's herding cats, so you got to have a lot of rules there. That's why they have the Rules Committee. All right, so she's got more power than the majority leader has. The whips count the votes. There's a, the majority leader on the House side helps out. So that's kind of Congress, all right? Okay. So, let's go to the president. Ooh. Let's go one more thing. Congress is big, so we're doing it with the way, hey, what are Congress's powers? And it's going to be the economic stuff, the war stuff, and the other stuff. Let's see if I can name 19. Economics. tax, print money, coin money. The two bad things, counterfeit, bankruptcy, and I'm forgetting something. Regulate interstate commerce. That's the big one. The size of government's grown so much because of the commerce clause and the elastic clause kind of combining with each other. All right. And then the military, war, Army, Navy, call up and train the militia, pirates. What else? I'm missing something. Army, Navy, war. The president makes treaties, so it's not going to be treaties. Army, Navy, war, pirates. I'm not doing a call up and train the militia. I'm missing out one. If you got them right, hey, good job. Give yourself a Jolly Rancher. Doing better than me. And then PPNFACE. All right, so post office. I'm reading stuff that the post office is really in trouble. I'm not sure why. Patents, post office, naturalization, that's immigration. Fixing standards of weights and measures. Exercise authority over Washington, D.C. and the federal buildings, and then it create inferior courts. That's those district courts and the circuit courts that we look at. So those are the powers. All right. Next. Thank you, next. Isn't that like a Selena Gomez thing? Okay, the president. And we'll go ahead and say executive. Might throw the bureaucracy in there. All right, same thing. You pause it. Put down everything you can. Okay, let's see what you came up with. All right. Whoop. Whoop. All right, let's go right here. Now, if I forget something, that's a pretty good sign. We probably ought to look at it, because it means I didn't teach it very well. If it's not sticking with me. All right, so the roles. The roles of the president. So you got head of state for the symbolic stuff. Chief executive for carrying out laws. That's constitutional. Party leader. That's what Obama was really bad at. Represent the nation. That's what Trump's so terrible at. Commander-in-chief. That's a divided power. Chief diplomat. Of those, chief executive, chief diplomat, commander-in-chief. Those are constitutional roles. Head of state, representative of the nation, and party leader. Those are things that have kind of evolved. They're not in the Constitution. All right, but those roles are important. All right. So then we'll talk about what the Constitution says. And so it's like Article 2. All right, and hey, let's go ahead and throw, before I forget, I think we kind of go with like the Electoral College, the election of the president, so you get some politics in there. Anything else? I don't really think that the stuff we looked at, impeachment. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. Impeachment. And then I'll say bureaucracy. Now, if you sit there, there's a couple of things you can do. If I say something and you go, Mackenzie, you're going too fast, you don't have a picture go with it, you're not telling stories to go with it. Like, you can go back to, my channel, or all those reminds I sent out. However, you can go to my channel and you can pull up the review on the executive, the review on Congress. You can do that too. And I might send those out. But let's talk about the Constitution. All right. So the Constitution. He's the commander-in-chief, so he can... And you got the War Powers Act there. Congress declares war. He sends troops. There hadn't been a war declared since World War II. And you got the War Powers Act after Vietnam because of the Tonkin Gulf Resolution that people felt like created that imperial presidency where Johnson and Nixon had too much power. So that's the commander-in-chief. He can pardon, amnesty, the mass pardons. So that's, he does the pardon he does the pardon at Thanksgiving time. The executive orders and the executive agreements are ways to get around Congress, so that's the interaction there. They're temporary as opposed to like passing a law or negotiating a treaty. So as chief diplomat, he's going to negotiate treaties. We looked at, I don't know, probably the most famous one, maybe Treaty of Versailles, where, Wilson has the stroke. What else in the Constitution? Impeachment's in the Constitution. He sends and receives ambassadors. That's in the Constitution. Tell you what. There's a guy. I'm going to go send. I tell you what I'm going to send out. There's a guy named Jeremy Adams has an awful good review of everything. Wonder if he's got a good review of this year, because I really, really liked him. Man, I get people to look at his video. But at any rate, he can send and receive ambassadors. So that's, he's always got the power to appoint. There you go, appointing judges and cabinet members. That's in the Constitution. That's a chief executive kind of thing. All right, so that's about 4 things, right? So the war making, the appointment, the pardoning, the treaties, State of the Union. From time to time, he's going to make the State of the Union. That's required. That's not required to be a speech, but it's required that every year he's got to give Congress what he thinks, what kind of shape he says the country's in. All right, the impeachment. I think you know the stories of impeaching. You know the process awfully well. The House impeaches with a majority. The Senate has the trial, and if there's a conviction, it's got to be 2/3, and there's never been a conviction. Johnson came the closest, and you know that story. All right, the bureaucracy is part of the executive branch. At the end. And starting now, those folks who, it's just kind of up to you if you don't want to think about reviewing. On Netflix, the thing on Waco's on there is so good, so phenomenal about the ATF and the FBI and David Koresh. Like, it wasn't on. I couldn't pull it up on video in the fall, but it's on Netflix now. I rewatched the first segment of it. There's like 6 of them, and they're about 40 minutes apiece. It's so good, so good. All right, but let's think about what we got in the bureaucracy. You got the cabinet. That's all the secretaries, the 15 people. All right, state and defense and treasury were first, and homeland security was most recent. And remember, they were created in the order they were kind of needed. I bet if I tried to do all 15, I wouldn't get all 15 of them right now. You got government corporations. The post office is a government corporation. I've got to look up what the problem is with the post office. Seeing stuff about that. You've got executive agencies, that don't quite fit in the cabinet. The FDA is an executive agency. I was watching an episode of West Wing. And the FDA was going to approve RU-486, that morning after pill, in that episode. NASA is Exhibit A on an executive agency. Regulatory commissions, the Fed. We really looked pretty well at the Fed when we did that. It regulates the economy, it raises or lowers the interest rates. That's monetary policy. And the SEC won't let M&M be. And they're kind of concerned with decency. The Super Bowl was kind of controversial. Not as controversial as the wardrobe malfunction year, but Who did it? Who did the Super Bowl? It was Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. And, that was kind of controversial. My parents were very troubled by that Super Bowl halftime show. Seems like a long time ago, back before all this stuff happened. All right. So you got the cabinet, regulatory commissions, government corporations, independent agencies. Those are the things in the bureaucracy. Let's go ahead and throw in an iron triangle. Iron triangle on all the different bills. So this is very good. So that's interaction, and I'll throw it in there again. But you got the congressional committee, and the executive agency, the department or whatever, and then the interest group always working together on all the different issues. All right, but I'd say that's kind of what we need to know about. Those are the big ones for the executive branch. Okay, I hadn't looked him up. Guy I sent out the other day is okay. Guy named, I think his name's Kelly Falkowski or something like that. I think I like him a little better. I think we watched him after we had read a letter from Birmingham jail. But this guy, Jeremy Adams, he's out there in California. He's awfully good. I'm going to look him up. I hadn't looked him up in regards to the coronavirus. All right. He may be, I don't know, California coronavirus. He may be a little too stressed out to be doing one. I don't know, but he's awfully good. All right, the courts. Okay, I'm gonna breathe. You say what you think about the courts. I just kind of think this stuff is fun. So even you folks that don't like taking AP tests, reviewing at the end of the year when you're just trying to put it all together, there's something that's a nice mental challenge about that. You want to finish, right? We want to finish. Right here, the odds are against us. That's why we're gonna take our shot. Step right up, take your shot. All right. So let's see if we can finish here. All right. Okay. So let's see what we got. And so you just kind of over time put it together, and it starts to feel better and better, and it just kind of, you get kind of excited about the test in a certain way. I don't know. Now what do I need to do to make that a circle? I can't remember. What if I did that? There we go. Okay. So courts. Let's see what we're going to say about the courts. Let's say a little something about jurisdiction. And that is that the federal court's jurisdiction is going to be something that wouldn't make sense for a state to do. So states against each other, the federal government and state. If an ambassador, like somebody working for the federal government's a party to the case. Maritime, if it's out in the ocean. I think Angel asked how far out. We decided it had to be 9 miles out in the ocean, or if it's on the Florida beach, it's still in Florida. But jurisdiction, and then like the dual court system. So you got the law on the state side. You got the lower courts, the Superior Court, State Court of Appeals, State Supreme Court. Then it gets appealed to the Supreme Court. On the federal side, you got the 94 district courts, 13 circuit courts of appeals. Then it goes to the Supreme Court. Way more cases get appealed to the Supreme Court than it accepts. All right, then you're kind of looking at the Supreme Court in action. What do you want to do? You want to do... Yeah, let's go Supreme Court in action first. Then we'll do like the confirmation process. So what? They have the oral... So first they file the briefs. So the judges are... 4 of the 9 give a writ of certiorari. Certified, because the courts kind of speak for the minority. They'll read amicus curiae briefs. Those are interest group briefs. The lawyers get 30 minutes each. They can be interrupted Those are called the oral arguments because they're talking. Then they go to conference. They argue with each other. Then they vote. Then they have the decision. The decision's who wins, what the score is. Then they write the majority opinions. The majority opinion, singular, explaining why they ruled the way they did. You know, clear and present danger, right to privacy. You know, all those kind of doctrines that we looked at when we're looking at the civil liberties. Those are from the majority opinions. The people who disagree write the dissenting opinions, and if they agree for a different reason, kind of a concurring opinion. All right. Let's see. How to get on the Supreme Court. How do we want to do? Appointment. So appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate Judiciary Committee. There we had a little thing called Rice or something like that. Rick. They're going to look at their ideology. Race and ethnicity is important. Religion, like Catholics, tend to get on the Supreme Court. Experience, they got to be competent. You know, Harriet Myers wasn't seen as competent. All right. They'll look into their background. That's called vetting. So that's when the scandals come out, if they come out. Then it goes to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They dodge the questions in the committee, and then it goes to the full Senate. Interest groups weigh in for or against the appointment. All right, and then activism and restraint. If we can connect things up on the appointment, I read an interesting article today. It said, isn't it ironic that, you know, you kind of had the sexual harassment moment with Clarence Thomas, and then Bill Clinton came along, a Democrat who was pro-women's rights, and then, well, everything kind of gets up in the air, and, you know, Hillary Clinton defended her husband, and, you know, you have the whole question of, like, consistency. And then you had, like, Me Too and Kavanaugh, and now you got Biden. And, again, there's this question of consistency. All right. Activism and restraint. I mean, I just like the way the slides read on that. You know, the restraint, those are the originalists. You know, the Constitution needs to mean what it meant when they wrote it. What did the writers of the Constitution mean when they wrote these words? And you can't be changing the meaning of the words. What else did we say about... And so the judges shouldn't be making policy. What did Scalia say? Hey, if you want there to be an abortion, pass a law that abortion is allowed. You know, the courts shouldn't be doing it. It shouldn't be up to the courts to do it. It ought to be a legislative thing. Legislators make laws. State legislators in Congress. You know, the court should restrain itself and do what the framers originally intended it to do. And then the activists are going to say, look, but, you know, so much has changed. You got to have a living Constitution. And the court's got to stand up for both of them are in favor of absolutes in certain ways. Isn't that interesting? So, like the originalists, the absolute, like, limits set by the Constitution. This is a limited government. And that limit's got to be pretty absolute. And then the activists are saying, well, there's absolute rights that have to be defended against the majority, you know, and so the underdog needs somebody to step in for them. You know, the minority needs to step in. Brown versus Board of Education shows that the minority needs the court to step in for it. All right, this is not pure democracy. We got majority rule, but we got minority rights, and it's the court's job to defend minority rights. So I mean, I just am really sympathetic to, I think both sides are just making phenomenal points because these are really smart people doing that. Okay, so there's the courts. All right, now here this next slide is the last one I'm doing, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. That's not true. But what the standard says is interaction. This is what's being tested. Interaction between branches. All right, that's some nice spelling there, So we'll start with checks and balances. And then maybe we'll talk about lawmaking. And we'll see what else we say. All right. Okay, checks and balances. So you got that triangle. So make that triangle. So what the president can veto, what Congress does. Congress can, oh, I ate that apple. You remember that? Override, approve, impeach. Override, impeach. Approve treaties and appointments. So they can override a veto with a 2/3 vote. They can approve of appointments with a majority vote. They can approve of treaties with a 2/3 vote. I don't know, the State of the Union. That's Congress and the president kind of talking to each other. It's not checks and balances. All right. The courts have judicial review over what the president and the Congress do. To get on the court, you got to be nominated by the president, confirmed by 2/3 of the Senate. The lawmaking process, oversight, that's really important. The lawmaking process, Congress makes the law, he signs it, or he vetoes it. And then what he implements, the bureaucracy implements it. Now, we won't get too carried away with bureaucracy studies. We would if we had made it the whole year, but bureaucracy didn't really make the cut. But that's the legislative branch and the executive branch really working together. And then if somebody thinks the law is unconstitutional, well, all three of these things, all three branches, kind of overlapping. Somebody said it wasn't separation of power, that it doesn't really work like separation of powers. It's separate branches kind of overlapping and working together. Okay. Anything else to say about that? All right. Oversights, fire alarm or police patrol oversight. Well, that's kind of the interaction between branches. All right. If I make a second video, and by the time you're seeing this thing, you'll know if there's a second video for today. It'll be on the essential documents. We want to kind of think about those essential documents. So I would say this was about 20 minutes, right? All right, and so like the things you got to know foundations, you got to know this, and you got to know civil liberties and civil rights. Federalism is included in foundations. So probably foundations would be something that I'd be looking at on Wednesday. I don't imagine I'll do anything with foundations today. All right, let's see what we got here. I bet it's 20 minutes exactly. 20 minutes and 3 seconds.